Okay, I think we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Minty's second webinar. We're very excited to have you here today, and we're very excited to introduce one of our psychologists, Álvaro Fernández Cencerrado. It's great to have you here, Álvaro. We're very excited to hear what you have to say. Alvaro is going to be speaking about something that's very relevant to all of us as therapists and psychologists. With the advent of COVID and post-pandemic and remote work, a lot of us have had to adjust and understand how to deliver therapy online and how to support our clients the best way that we can using these remote methods of working. Obviously, with this, we get this enhanced flexibility. We have so many different advantages. We are able to work from a space that's already comfortable to us, and our clients get to be in their home space. We also get to observe our clients in their comfort zone. So there have been a lot of advantages. At the same time, there are obviously certain challenges that we have to navigate. So it's going to be very interesting to hear Alvaro tell us about those challenges and how we can navigate them better. Alvaro brings a very unique perspective to psychology, something that many of us may not be very aware of, which is video game psychology, and he combines that with general health psychology. He's the author of a book named Video Games, The Last Black Mirror, which sounds fascinating. So towards the end, Alvaro, I'm going to be asking you questions about that.
Sure.
And he delves into the psychological impact of video games. So, definitely something that's very interesting, especially for those of us who work with young people and adolescents. We're constantly seeing that play out. So it would be very nice to, to quiz Alvaro on his knowledge. And his therapeutic approach is holistic, integrative, and he has a very strong focus on practical solutions. So without taking any more time to myself, I'm going to let Alvaro start on his lovely webinar that he's prepared for us.
Thank you, Zuleika, so much for your kind presentation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I hope you enjoy the session and feel comfortable enough to raise your hand, ask questions, and collaborate to make this as interactive and engaging as possible. Don't worry if we get a bit too interactive. We will count on Álvaro's assertiveness to keep the presentation on track. Like many of you, I gather experiences and anecdotes that stray slightly from the politically correct path. I believe this will be the most valuable part of today's talk. Instead of just covering the basics of how to practice psychology or conduct therapy, we'll focus on key points in situations where different opinions may arise. This will enrich our discussion significantly. This webinar is presented with the sincere intention of sharing the insights I've gained from 4 years of experience as an online therapist, with over 2 of those years dedicated to this work intensively. Let's unlock online therapy with the top things I wish I had known before I started. Understanding the theory is one thing, which we all do, but it's another to experience the consequences of not properly applying that theory to your own health and self-care. On the flip side, it's equally important to recognize and enjoy the benefits when you do apply self-care principles effectively. The importance of establishing a solid framework and paying attention to the details of the online therapeutic setting. We'll take that in part 2 of this webinar. And at the end, some controversies and summing it up, some key takeaways. What do you consider the most important aspect of therapeutic self-care? I have my own thoughts, but they may not necessarily align with what you value most. I would love to open a brief put in common if someone wants to participate and be brave enough to share with us what is the most important thing for them in particular, and what is the most important thing you will recommend in general for therapists before we go on, because I'm gonna share with you what is my main thing, but may not be what your main thing. So I would like some brave people to, before I saw what they have in mind, to share their thoughts. Katrina seems to be touching the screen. Maybe you want to talk, Katrina? Anyone wants to share? Anyone wants to participate? If not, don't worry. We will have more opportunities to put in common later.
If anyone wants to just make a note in the chat as well, you can do that.
What is for you the most important self-care thing that we have to take care of? Could you repeat your question again? So sorry, no problem, Nikita. Please do ask to repeat the questions or anything you didn't understand. Okay, moving on, I will take a look to the chat. I have the chat open. So the most important thing for me doing online therapy is structuring our work hours to align with our natural rhythms of activity and rest. You will see why this is important for me pretty quickly. This is an example of a chaotic weekly schedule. On Monday, we start at 10 a.m. We have 1 hour break, then see another patient at 12 p.m., followed by one more after lunch, which in Spain is typically from 2 to 3 p.m. After that, there's a 2-hour gap before the next patient at 7 p.m. The thing is that when I first started, if a patient requested a specific time, I will always say, sure, whenever you like, with the aim of offering extra flexibility. As a result, my patients were scattered throughout the day and the week, requiring me to repeatedly switch on and off throughout the days and hours. Is having another question I bring to the debate, to the chat, is having this much flexibility really a good thing? Is having this much flexibility really a good thing? On the other hand, here's an example of well-organized weekly schedule with 25 sessions. We begin the week with a solid workload divided into 2 4-hour blocks. 2 4-hour blocks, as you see, and keep Wednesday morning free for leisure, rest, or handling other responsibilities and unforeseen events. We continue in the afternoon and finish the week on Thursday morning, giving us a long weekend of 3.5 days. Is this better? For me, absolutely. Let me read the chat. I don't think someone can overextend themselves by being too flexible. For some, it can be difficult to switch on and off so frequently. Indeed, I agree with your opinions. Thank you, Nikita, Zuleika, for sharing. Based on the study of performance psychology, particularly applied to video games, I recommend organizing sessions into blocks of 3 to 6 with breaks of 5 to 15 minutes between sessions and longer breaks of at least 2 hours between blocks, if possible, as you see here. The reasoning behind short and long breaks is straightforward. Short breaks should be long enough to catch your breath, but short enough to avoid losing focus or relaxing too much. Long breaks should be long enough to give you a sense of ample time to rest without the stress of watching the clock or feeling rust. In all performance psychology literature, well-timed breaks always improve attentional performance. Let me go down to move this list. Sorry, I moved something here. Now I move the light. Yeah, there we go. We may not always be able to create the perfect schedule, but by following this fundamental principle, our calendar will start to resemble a well-organized one with some flexibility, like the sample shown here. It's not as perfectly organized as before, but is still way more organized than the first one we've seen. Same sessions, same time spent in therapy, full organization. Maybe it's not realistic, but trying to have that organization makes the work blocks much more focused and easy to manage across the week, having its impact on the short, medium, and long term. So I know that most of us here might be therapists, and you have your own tips and resources to improve your performance that we have to take care of. What is the thing that helps you the most to keep you on track? I have a bank of words that many of you may know, and I want you to share some thoughts about any in particular you like. For instance, I'll go ahead maybe with posture, because it's pretty important that if we are going to remain seated doing long therapy sessions for half a year, 1 year, 3 years, forever, we don't know. If we realize that we are having our neck like this, okay, so why don't just gather some books, put the laptop more upwards, and we can have our neck like this? Because in the long run, having our neck properly in shape will be better. Also, the eye distance, if the screen is too close or we have some resources to push the screen backwards, in the long run may also be helpful for our eyes, for the muscle of our eyes. Does anyone have an idea why I put the fridge in tips for performance and well-being? Any insight on this? We talk about breaks. We know screens, the light of screens and how it denies in the night melatonin secretion. We know that exercise, proper caffeine taking, meditation, therapy, stretching, obviously it helps. I can tell you that the best thing for cognitive performance is strength exercise, but strength exercise requires to be maintained, and meanwhile stretching doesn't have that effect in 2 or 3 days. That in other words, when you do a strength exercise, you need to repeat it. If not, your body will feel tired, and you someone will need to stretch. So in the long run, stretching is slightly better. Even with some strength exercise, you will have a burst of energy and mental performance. For me, the most important things, I'm reading the chat: healthy nutrition, rest, and motivation to contribute to others. obviously, yeah, for sure, having principles, having values, having motivation, that's indeed for sure. I don't think someone can understand. Okay. For me, it's my hour of weekly reflection to check in with myself. I make this mandatory every week, regardless of what is happening. Meditation helps too. Indeed, having some deep meditation or time for ourselves in silence makes our body reach more deeply our relaxation state. With it doesn't have only short-term effects; it have medium and long-term effects as we make our reach of deep relaxation more deeper, and that for meditation helps a lot. So regarding healthy nutrition, I'm gonna show why I put the fridge in here, because when we are, let's say, 4 sessions straight, 5 sessions straight, 6 sessions straight, then we drop down our energy. We need maybe some sugar, maybe some caffeine. There are we on a state to reason uh, what is the most healthy thing to eat. Maybe we are not. We are in an impulsive state. So the way you fill your fridge, the way you make um, the buy at the supermarket is what you will eat when you are hungry, in need of energy, and impulsive. So have access to nutrition, right? Yeah, indeed. Nutrition is pretty important. And also avoid heavy eating before doing the sessions. Indeed, we all agree on that. But I just wanted to share the tip of the fridge. Uh, and personally, I will share with you that I try to avoid buying low quality chocolate, and in trade of that, sometimes I feel panic. I recognize because I fulfill the fridge with carrots. So whenever I need energy, the only thing I have is carrots on the fridge, and sometimes I open the fridge and the carrots look at me, and I look back at them, and they told me, "Okay, let's be easy on each other," and that's the end of the argument. What can we do? So moving on, also some self rewards, which is pretty important for the rest, for our dopamine care, for our enjoyment, and to feel rewarded in life. And a short tip I can give you from video game psychology: the more we pre-visualize our reward, the more we anticipate and delay at the same time our reward. um, and dreaming this weekend I'm going out to the countryside with someone, and that will be my reward. The more we are tasting that in our imagination, the better it is for our serotonin secretion at the very end when the reward comes. But play on that with pre-visualization and delay management of that reward. And also scheduling some rewards and pre-visualizing them is better than just improvising, because when you improvise, you take more impulsive rewards. Okay, so let's move on to the framework. Okay, so for international clients, the guidelines from the American Psychology Association recommends that the professionals should be familiar with the law's environment regarding some topics of the online therapy. I'm gonna share right away on the chat. Let me go here. A guide appendix of telehealth psychology, which is an index. Oh, sorry, I just sent to to one in particular. Let me share to everyone. There we go. So in that guide appendix, you will have a lot of guides of how to do psychology, but it's not today's topic to do a formal webinar of how to do psychology or not. This webinar is about sharing those tips. So psychologists are encouraged to be familiar with and comply with all relevant laws and regulations when providing telepsychology services to clients, patients across jurisdictional and international borders. As Minty is based on Dubai, I just took a quick look of the Emirates law, which has a lot of similarities what we are used, at least in Europe, and I think the United States too. In the Emirates, summing this up, you will have the presentation too at the end of the talk. I will give you the presentation in PDF. And summing all that works up, in the Emirates, as in most countries, if we determine that someone needs therapy or is at risk of harming themselves or others, we can and should require that person to go to the emergency. If necessary, we should at least notify the local authorities, and in such situations, the police, emergency service, and psychiatrists will take over responsibility for the case. So we should be familiar. You have there the emergencies numbers. We can call that as we are used to. Also, we have to take on count that within Muslim couples, the father holds the final authority. However, there is flexibility for immigrant, married, and divorced couples who can request the application of their home country's laws. In Spain, as far as I know, similarly in Spain, as far as I know, in most countries, both parents must be informed if their child is undergoing therapy. There may be exceptions, such as in Spain and the United Kingdom, where 16-year-old can seek therapy independently, and it's up to the psychologist to decide whether to inform the parents. Regardless, we should always adhere to the principle of prudence, and whenever possible, it's best to have the consent of both parents. This framework regarding minors. So, we are just one slide away from the maybe one of the most important slides of this presentation. As we aim to provide the maximum support, we must acknowledge that this is an asymmetrical relationship, where the psychologist and the patient have different conditions. We cannot make exceptions for one without applying the same rules for everyone. A well-defined therapeutic framework is crucial to avoid controversies, and rather than creating a cold distance, it demonstrates professionalism and reinforces the boundaries of the therapeutic space. Let me check the chat because I don't know what I did. Okay, there we go. So, tips that I wish I have been told for the framing of the online sessions. Why is this an asymmetric relationship? It's quite simple for the following reasons. We need to require reservations and prepayment for sessions. If all patients decide to cancel or not show up in a week and then refuse to pay, what do we do? And mostly if we have to reschedule patients in another day, we have a schedule already for other issues, it becomes undoable. It becomes undoable, and maybe we can make exceptions with some patients when in the long run they have been pretty well committed to the therapy. And I'm giving you my opinion right now. And they did not show up before to a session that they were charged already and they didn't complain on being charged. Then if that's the case of a long-term patient that he didn't attend before he was charged, he didn't complain, and then he didn't attend because they have something, maybe we can give that extra to them as a fidelity building. strategy. It's a controversial situation we will see later, too. But also remember that in most countries, I'm not sure of this, but at least in Spain, um, if you have a major issue such illness or family at hospital, the last minute cancellation is is available for them, so we cannot charge them if they have that and they can prove it. Regarding the the scheduling of the sessions, we should pretty specifying the exact time, um, that we should be pretty specific and remark that at the time we schedule, we are gonna be available, and how much notice the patients need to give for changes or cancellations without incurring a fee, extra charge, or um, or whatever. And also specify if they are going to receive reminders of the session. If reminders are not automated, I recommend not relying on them and instead ensuring that patients understand we will be available at the appointed time, regardless of whether we communicate throughout the week or not. Example, if I don't talk, I wrote you in the chat, the session is scheduled, you see it on your platform, and everything is set, even if we don't talk in the whole week, I'll be there. Trust I'll be there, and there's no need to retalk. Maybe we talk, maybe not. Maybe the platform or we have some software that gives some reminder of the session. Maybe we can make that explicit. If not, then not. We just agree by word. It's essential to state the session duration clearly, and especially in the initial sessions to adhere strictly to this time frame. We'll get on this later in the controversial section. I also strongly advise, even if the patient is talking, to make a brief interjection, apologize, and indicate when we need to start wrapping up, so we don't have to end the session too abruptly. Okay? Additionally, besides having a main computer, it's wise to have a mobile phone ready with headphones. This is important not only in case the main computer fails, but also for situations like one I encountered. I have high quality noise cancelling headphones that I can show you right away, which is these ones. Okay, this microphone is pretty good at noise cancelling and doesn't show unless you are in top of the microphone. But one day, there was a construction right beneath where I conduct therapy, hammering on the same wall next to me. The noise was unbearable and came through. Therefore, and I saved the session that day actually with a mobile phone, with headphones, and a small tripod for the phone, along with an alternative location. And that's it. And the investment for this plan B, if we have to move or our connection doesn't work, is no more than 20 to 30 euros with the mobile connection. So if you don't have it, is safe investment to have this plan B, and sometimes it will save you sessions, and if not, then you have this plan B, and that's it. Yeah. Any questions? Feel free to make them on the chat. Let me double check the chat. Someone to. Okay, that's it. On the next slide, I have outlined 5 potentially controversial situations to discuss how we handle them. We'll begin by addressing a situation related to points 1 and 2, specifically being strict with time slots for patients. By the way, those are just 5 examples, 5 topics. I'm gonna get more specific into 2 or 3, but you can propose other topics for the later discussion. So while I've suggested that some flexibility is necessary, excessive flexibility can turn our schedules into chaos and lead to burnout. Additionally, it's important to consider the perceived value of the therapist's time. I'm going to repeat this. It's important to consider the perceived value of the therapist's time. If one therapist has many openings and another therapist has only a few, people often perceive the more in-demand therapist as more valuable, purely from a sales perspective. And remember, I told you at the beginning of this webinar, when I started online therapy, I said to clients, when do you want to do the session? Oh, whenever you want. Doesn't matter. I'm starting to have my clients, so I have a lot of time slots. What is my indirect value? What is my unconscious value right there? Is lower. That if I tell to clients, which is what I do right now, I offer 2 time options, 2 time slots around existing sessions. So I pack the sessions, and then I ask the patient if those times work for them. If they don't, I offer another time, and if they refuse again, I decide whether to decline the patient, offer a single time slot, or postpone to the following week. Then we'll see. But I think we are right in this philosophy of some flexibility, and I hope you find useful this tip, because maybe you have integrated this tip, but I didn't. And I think it can be useful for new generations of online therapists. So moving to the second topic of the list, problematic clients. And here is something that you might, I'm going to put an example of something you might face it too. Problematic clients are pretty low in number. Every client, mostly 99% of clients, are assertive, reasonable people, even they are in a bad period of life. But let's say I have an experience of one that clearly was problematic. And by the way, this is a fictional scenario, and any resemblance to real events is purely coincidental. Lucille is a 45-year-old patient who, upon starting, goes through a screening with a team member. In the first session, the team member extends the session by 30 minutes out of courtesy. When I see her for the first time, she appears minimally organized but has a disjointed, incoherent, and rambling discourse with poor memory and retention. She also claims that everyone abandons her and that all the professionals she interacts with, personal trainers, dietitians, lawyers, government officials, are just out to exploit her. Despite this, Lucille connects with me and is pleased with me as her therapist. For the next session, Lucille informs my friend that she completely forgot about the session and won't be able to attend. By the way, it's the case is a fictional case, we said, and in this fiction, my friend is beginning a online platform and he needed my help, and I tell him, okay, I'm gonna help you. Okay, so in line with that, my friend calls me stressed about what happened, and I suggest that with problematic or disorganized patients, we need to be stricter, strengthen the standards, and to see if they can adapt to the therapy's pace and structure. However, my friend feels bad about it and asks if I can make an exception. I agree that I can make an exception, but normally, if we let things start badly, they often end badly. At the next rescheduled session, she fails to show up. So we emphasize that we are very sorry, but if she misses another session, it will be charged. And we affect that rescheduling with no charge because we've done it already. Now if we go backwards, it's like the sunk cost of everything we've done values nothing. So whatever, let's go ahead. This approach aligns with the philosophy that my friend is starting his platform, trying to retain every patient no matter what, and mostly at his beginnings. I'm doing enough. After that, we continue with 4 more sessions, which initially seemed fine, but by the 5th session, Lucille forgets again, and we charge her that session. Lucille, and in this fiction, this particular client was having reminders, a lot of reminders too. Lucille decides to leave therapy. The question is, did we handle this correctly? Open to debate. So, moving to the next topic, controversial situation, I really want to talk about too. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Then at the end, I'll gather them all. So, giving extras, mostly by giving extras, the most common extras that you can give in online therapy is overstaying 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But let's get clearly on the key point of this. Imagine a patient A, where in the first session we extend 10 minutes beyond the scheduled time. And in the second session, we stick to the scheduled time. We have patient A in one hand. And in the other hand, we have patient B, where in the first session, we adhere to the scheduled time, to the framework. And way more sessions later, by the 6th session, we offer an additional 10 minutes as a gesture to enhance their experience, or maybe because they need it, maybe because we can too. And simple psychology, patient A, is given 10 extra minutes, but his satisfaction is way different than patient B, who appreciates a lot more that given 10 minutes extra. It's pretty important that everything we do outside the framework, we make it explicit. Imagine like we have been strict to the framework, like with a patient for 6 sessions, and by the 7th session, we overstay 10 minutes. This is another example. We overstay 10 minutes out of the session. And we don't say anything. And then by the 8th session, we have to cut the session abruptly, or we don't overstay when they needed it. It's not like they are gonna be pissed. It's not a major issue, but if we made explicit in the 7th session that we're giving that extra 10 minutes, just pretty normal, pretty fluent, pretty assertive. Okay, I can stay 10 minutes more. Just make it explicit. Then the following day, the following session, if they need that overstay or not, it's better that we have make it explicit before than not making it explicit at all. It's not a major issue, but it's better to always make it explicit and to sell it. And also, if you want to get deeper on this, okay, I can stay 10 minutes because I see you need it, and because I can stay today those 10 minutes, maybe other day no. And today, I can stay. And when we do that, that is perceived as an extra value rather than the framework, the standard. And I think is at least it's a pretty important tip that I wish I had been told. So sometimes we have to cancel the session. because we have our own lives, we have our own problems, and maybe this comes in conflict with the reciprocal relationship. But as we said, this is not a reciprocal, totally relationship. It is an asymmetrical relationship. And I'm going to open this for debate. What do you do? How do you express yourself? How do you find your internal conflicts of communicating the motives of why did you cancel and how you play with that? And also link to online therapy, pretty much linked to online therapy. It happened to me one day that the patient couldn't connect to the session, and he affirmed that everything was set up properly to connect to the sessions. Is more salty situation than I forgot the session. Okay, it's my fault. Maybe I get charged. Maybe I get salty because I get charged, but it's my fault. So it's easier psychology to assume your responsibility. But when that day happened to me, that the client was ready to make the session, he was willing to make the session, he was prepared to do the session, and we couldn't figure out if it was a problem of the platform, a problem of his internet, and what in that space between. So another extra tip here will be like, we cannot be responsible if they cannot connect to the session. If it's a platform problem, then the platform, I think, should be responsible. But if they cannot connect to the session, we are not responsible either. And I didn't fall into that because never happened to me before. You know, so that extra tip. And if you want to talk, we can talk about self-disclosure, because it's a traditional, controversial topic in therapy that many of you will have your style, your opinion. And my personal opinion on self-disclosure is that always look for the need of it. It has some therapeutic purpose. And if the closeness and distance with your patient is on a healthy state to what the patient and the therapy needs. And if the self-disclosure fits into that, we can flexible with self-disclosure. So, key takeaways. Calendar building, self-care, solid framework. We covered before 3 main points, which was calendar build, self-care, solid framework, and controversial situations. But for me, the top 3 key takeaways of today's talk is the self-care mainly, and the 2 last points of solid framework and controversial situations can be summarized into solid framework. Attending to every small detail without becoming obsessed, but maintaining consistency, flexibility, and gradual improvement in our daily practice can significantly impact our well-being and effectiveness as therapists. Thank you very much for your attention. So let me check the chat. So in the case, please feel free to make any questions. So in the case where the psychologist has to make a last-minute cancellation of the session, how will one approach the financial process of that if the prepayment has already been made? So that depends on your so there, personally, in my private therapy, I will talk to the client what he wants to do, if he wants to postpone the therapy, or depends if he bought a session pack, then he needs to use the sessions or not. That depends on the pack conditions. And yeah, if that happens way too often, the therapist can do it, but we have always the sword of on the top of our head that we can get a bad review. So we always have that pressure of responsibility. So we are supposed, and on average, it doesn't happen quite randomly or quite often that we cancel the session. So never really had a problem on this when I told some patients I need to cancel, because I personally I always maintain um, a healthy and a strong enough mean of attending to the sessions. So mm, if there's a problematic psychologist canceling too much or being um, I don't know, pretty disorganized, then sooner or later we'll get a bad review, and that's pretty sad, and it doesn't pay off. Uh, doesn't pay off. Yeah, so Nikita, I think the debate here will be either to tell the truth or just to put some political, well-accepted excuse. And that's also a debate linked to self-disclosure and the distance you want to play that you think benefits the better your patient. If you have a style more close to your patient, more personal, or you have a more distance style, therapeutic style. That will be my answer, and I think I cover. Just re-ask if I didn't cover what you wanted as an answer. Yeah.
Álvaro, thank you so much for that. It was so
Thank you.
informative and so helpful. I really liked the sections on self-care because, that is something that is so important. A lot of the times as therapists, we overlook how important it is to take care of ourselves because we're also caring and we try and fill everybody else's cup. Sometimes we forget to fill our own. So I really appreciated all of the insights you gave into that. And, even with having those frameworks in place just makes such a big difference to the way we can carry out our practice. So that was very, very, very informative and very helpful. Thank you so much. I don't know if you've got any more questions.
There is no more question on the chat.
No more questions? Okay,
Oh,
well then,
Nikita again. Great thing. You also wanted to ask, how does a therapist maintain a work-life balance when they work spends coincides in the place where they also relax and carry their life activities? Yeah, that's a pretty good question, and the answer I think is pretty straightforward. It's always better to differ your workplace and your relaxed place. But then we are talking about individual variables, personality variables of each therapist, and what you are used to. So you can train working in the same place you relax, or uh, the other is something that um, you can do, sit somewhere nearby to work, or is something that you can train and get used or not used to it. That will be my answer, but definitely it's always better to differ the workplace from the relaxed place if you can afford it. 100% Nikita. Sorry, Zuleika, I interrupted you. I don't know. You were about to talk and then I read the chat.
No, no worries at all. I think you're able to see the questions. I think they're being asked
Mhm.
directly to you, so that's great.
Yeah, it's on direct message. Yeah, Nikita is asking me on direct message, so maybe the rest you don't see.
Yes, no, that's fine. Thank you. No, thank you for answering those questions for everyone who's joined in today. I'm sure that everyone really enjoyed that and really found it very helpful and informative. I wanted to ask you, Alvaro, about your work in gaming psychology and how that's informed your practice.
Yeah, so definitely the best thing or the main thing we have seen from gaming psychology is performance psychology, what we see here on self-care, because when I went into top performance psychology for esports athletes, then I realized that every tip to enhance performance was good uh, for uh, for health. So uh, 1 second, answering. Yeah, you have the presentation on the chat, by the way. And and what I do really like, the my biggest conclusion, my biggest or more deep key takeaway of gaming psychologist is that if something that we all know, but it has its importance to see it and to taste it, to experience it, and to touch it um, scientifically, or scientifically plus some experiences, that if we don't have an area of pursuing self-realization or finding meaning of what we do, if life is an exchange of dopamine, of costs and rewards, then we are going to be pretty unfulfilled. I'm not going to say that we should get crazy and pursue our vocation or our deepest self-realization, but just having some area of self-realization and some long-term project to enhance that serotonin, that I found studying gaming psychology, that a serotonin receptor can absorb dopamine and a dopamine receptor can absorb serotonin. So simple reasoning, if our brain is more endogenous, fulfilled with serotonin, we are going to be more satiated with less need of impulsive rewards, and we'll be better and feel better overall. Also want to mention that um I don't know what was, I forgot the question, Suleika, actually. Did you ask me how do I got to gaming psychology, and I was just explaining a long history?
No,
Was
no,
that
you
the question?
actually answered the question completely. No, I was asking about gaming psychology and how it's affected your practice.
Yeah. So cutting long story short, the the view of performance and health, and the view of cost rewards balance in order to treat anxiety, burnout, that clearly gave me another big perspective on anxiety and burnout. Yeah, in terms of general health. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Thank you for answering that. If there are no other questions, then I think we can wrap up. Thank you so much, Alvaro, for
Mm.
your great presentation. Thank you for all the information that you shared with us. And thank you to everybody who attended, everyone who decided to join us today. We look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. And we look forward to seeing you on the app as well. So thank you so much for joining. Take care and bye-bye.
Mm.